So if we want to figure out what events we have to work with, let's jump back to where this was defined. So I'm going to do a command click on this alter again. And so we're in routingevents.php. You can see the location of that in the folder structure here. So it's in core, lib, Drupal core, routing, then routing events. And I'm going to close out this search here to get a little bit more space for our code. And you can see that this actually just lists all of the different types of events that are being defined in this namespace. It's really just a set of constants with some description as to what each event does. So for example, the dynamic event is fired on a route collection to allow new routes. And then it says this event is used to add new routes based upon existing routes. So this is something that we could tap into if we wanted to. Let's see, the alter event is fired on a route collection to allow changes to routes. This event is used to process new routes before they get saved. So this is basically letting us know what events we can tap into. Now, if we look at the file name here, routingevents.php, I would wonder if maybe this is part of a convention, that maybe all of the classes that define the constants that align with the events that we can access, maybe all of those files end in events.php. So what I'm going to do is do a search across all file names for events.php. Okay, so at first we have some results that maybe aren't quite what we're looking for, but then we get to config events, kernel events, request events. Now from the Symfony videos, you might recognize kernel events. Let's open that up. If we scroll down, you can see we have the request event, the exception event, the view controller event, the response, terminate, and finish request events. Now if we jump back to our resource pack and take a look at some of the Symfony examples that we were working with. So I'm in the resource pack and I'm in the Symfony folder. I open up the steps and I'm going to scroll down to step 57 and open this up. This is when we switched over from using a listener to using a subscriber, which is a bit different. And you can see that the structure here is identical pretty much to what we just looked at in the Drupal code base. We have a class that implements event subscriber interface. We have a function called getSubscribedEvents where we return this array that aligns up the event name along with a response. Now, in this case, we set up the event ourselves, so we called it response, and that's what we were dealing with. In this case, in the accessRouteSubscriber.php, we're using an existing event instead of our own, but the structure here is the same. I'm going to close out this file. So now we're looking at kernelevents.php, and again, the reason why we opened this up is we were trying to test the idea that maybe anything that ends in events.php is going to list out the events that we can tap into in our subscribers. So I'm going to do a file name search again for events.php, and you can see that we have a few different files to look at. It wouldn't take us that long to go through and figure out what events we can tap into. And if we wanted to get a sense of what events are being used in subscribers, if we just go to our accessRouteSubscriber.php, what we could do is do a code-based search for getSubscribedEvents. So let's do that. Just going to do a search here, click find. And you see we have several uses. We have accessRouteSubscriber, which is this first one that we're looking at now. We can take a look at accessSubscriber here. This one taps into the request event from kernel events. We have adminRouteSubscriber here. And this one is grabbing events from the parent, and we can scroll down and see that it's also adding the alter from the routing events that we were looking at, and so on. We could continue looking at these to get a sense of what events are being used for what purposes. If you spent a little time around the code in these methods that are being run when these events occur, then that might give you some ideas of what you could do when these events are called as well. Okay, let me close this out.